be distributed? Should they be on a mass distribution basis too?
Oh, I think they are pretty much. The easiest thing is the temperature. I think they are. I don't know. Are you learning a lot from the temperature test, Tony? Could you maybe discuss that for a second?
Yeah, I mean, they have a place. They're not infallible. I mean, there's so many ways to get around that. I mean, right now, every time, certainly here, every time I go into a different room, I get my temperature taken. But we see that on the outside, that some people are doing that.
I took his temperature twice.
It was very low. There is a role for it under certain circumstances. What I don't see is a massive distribution of thermometers that are going to actually have a major impact on what I showed, what we need to do.
And I say, I've seen things when Tony mentions thermometers. They aim something at your forehead. They stay this far away, boom, and they tell you what your temperature is. I said, I've never seen that before. I've learned a lot. It's incredible. Go ahead, the back corner.
Jennifer Pellegrino with OEM, thank you. This morning, the Washington Post ran a story suggesting that you delayed taking action on the virus in January and February. Dr. Fauci has indicated that your action in the Chinese travel ban helped America immensely. What do you say to the Washington Post?
Well, I love whoever you're with. That's because I think that's such a nice question. No, I think the Washington Post covers us very inaccurately, covers me very inaccurately. I saw the story. I think it's a disgrace, but it's the Washington Post, and I guess we have to live with it. It's a very inaccurate, quiet. It's a very inaccurate story. From many people, I get a lot of credit for having closed our country very early to a very heavily infected country. China, unfortunately, China. I wish China would have told us more about what was going on in China long prior to us reading about it, even though the news isn't exactly disseminated. As you know, China kicked the Washington Post out of China, and they kicked the New York Times out of China, and I guess the Wall Street Journal. That's okay. I mean, that's what they do, and I think it's a terrible thing they did. But I also think it's terrible when people write inaccurately about you, and they write inaccurately about me every single day, every single hour. And by the way, your group really, I really think, and I just say fair, not good or bad. I think you write very fairly and do very fair reports about the great job that all of us are doing, that this group behind me is doing. It's so insulting when they write phony stories that they know are fake news, because they're not insulting me, they're insulting everybody, these incredible people that have worked so hard, so long, that are thinking about nothing other than this invisible enemy. They have done such an incredible job, and they will continue, and we're going to win, and there'll be a lot of celebration when we win. And we're going to win with as few lives lost as possible. That's the game. Win with as few lives lost as possible. It's a tough enemy. It's a tough killer. Far bigger, far more vicious than ever before. But I appreciate you saying it, because the fact that we closed so early to China, and most people, hey, look, I was called xenophobic by Sleepy Joe Biden. I was called a racist by Democrats, a racist. I was a racist because I decided that I didn't want to have people that could hurt our country come in. And I was pretty much in a very small group of people, I will tell you. It was a tiny little group. Most people, even that worked in the White House, disagreed with me very strongly. Saving of those many weeks was a tremendous thing. And when they keep talking about acting early, that was the ultimate act. That was the biggest act, because we didn't. And then I also closed Europe early, very early. And I took a lot of heat for that, too. But that was a good thing. Now they're doing similar things that we're doing. So I didn't act late. I acted early. I acted far before anybody thought I should be. I took tremendous criticism from the various papers, from many of the papers. So I very much appreciate the question. It might have been more of a statement than a question, but whatever it may have been, I appreciate it very much.
Mr. President, about this, so a number of the states have kind of done these different measures. We've seen California order one thing, New York, just be similar. Do you want all of the states to do one uniform?
No, they can do what they want to do. If California can get a mask sooner than we can get it for them, through all of the things we're able to do, but we're going to end up with a big oversupply at some point. At some point, this is going away. And we're going to end up with a big oversupply. And you know what? In this case, that's going to be okay. But if Gavin can go out and order gowns faster, or masks, good masks faster, or other things faster, that's good. We do have a lot of I mean, the coordination with the ships that we're sending in, as you know, the medical ships that we're sending in, and even cruise liners. We're going to be sending in probably cruise liners into some areas, in particular California and in particular New York. But if somebody can do something faster, if they can order that mask faster than us, I want them to be able to do
Sorry
it.
about the rules, sir. So people can't leave their homes. That certain businesses. That are
We
exempt.
coordinate very much with them, yes.
You don't want all those to be the same.
Well, it doesn't
nationwide.
have to be at this moment because we have places in the country where, states where they have 2 people or 3 people, and those people are in quarantine. And you can't put on them what you're putting in New York, where you do have a tremendous problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we have large portions of the country, Middle America, where, they have a few people. So it may be a time, I hope that never happens, where we need to take very drastic action. But right now, that's not in the same ballpark. Yeah, go ahead, please.
We're day 6 into your 15 days of recommendations.
Yes.
A lot of people are following them. Some people are not.
Yeah.
Do you think the American people are doing enough right now to slow the
I
spread
think
of this
they
virus?
are, and some people are not, but I think they are. I think it's going to have a very profound effect. I mean, we'll know a little bit more on day 14 and 15, and we'll
What's the
see.
plan once we get to
Well,
the
we're
end?
going to see. We have to see what the result is. We want to flatten that out, and we're going to see what the result is. And I just want to say, I'm going to negotiate a very large transaction, and I've been negotiating it for 2 days. So I'm going to take 1 or 2 more questions, and then I'm going to leave it to Vice President Pence on the Hill, with the Hill, the various elements of the package. Steve, go ahead.
There's a number of groups are calling for the postponement or cancellation of the Olympics. Have you given him third?
No, I haven't. Look, we understand the difficulty of that, and he's a very good friend of mine. You take a look at Shinzo Abe. He's a great gentleman. He loves his country. We have an incredible relation. We just finished a trade deal with them, $40 billion trade deal with Japan. And Prime Minister Abe has a big decision to make. They have built one of the most beautiful venues I've ever seen. They're all ready to go. It's not late. It's not over budget. It was just done flawlessly, and it's beautiful. And they're sitting back and saying, I told him, I said, that's your decision, and it is his decision. And I know he's going to make it soon. I don't know what it's going to be, and I didn't think I should be influencing it at all. I mean, the job that Japan has done on that venue is incredible. So, I mean, there are options, obviously, including delay and maybe delay for next year, but that's totally up to them. We'll see what they do.
Since this story keeps popping up, when did you first learn that this was going to be a problem?
Well, when I learned, I started doing the closing. So, probably around that time. We didn't learn much. I think you're going to ask a little bit about China responsibility. I do think that, again, I have great respect for China. I like China. I think the people of China are incredible. I have a tremendous relationship with President Xi. I wish they could have told us earlier about what was going on inside. We didn't know about it until it started coming out publicly. But I wish they could have told us earlier because we could have come up with a solution. Tony Fauci and all of the people, the talent that we have, would have loved to have had 3 or 4 months of additional time if you knew that this was going to be happening. They didn't have that time. They read about it in newspapers like everybody else. China was very secretive, okay? Very, very secretive. And that's unfortunate. With that, I have great respect for that country. I have great respect for the leader of that country and like him. He's a friend of mine. But I wish they would have told us earlier, Steve, that they were having a problem, because they were having a big problem and they knew it. And I wish they could have given us an advance warning, because we could have had a lot of things. As an example, some of the things that we're talking about where we order them as quickly as we can. If we had a 2 or 3 month difference in time, it would have been much better. Yeah, please.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
Because as you were saying, China was extremely secretive about this. Several of your advisors have been have been critical of China. Secretary Pompeo was talking about it yesterday, and he had been saying so for quite some time. So why then, on January 24th, did you tweet that China has been working very hard to contain the coronavirus, that the United States greatly appreciates their efforts and transparency?
Because
it will
it's
all
true.
work out well.
Because
Why were
it's
you
true.
saying that?
China has worked very hard. China has lost thousands and thousands of people.
Right?
No, they weren't transparent. They were transparent at that time. But when we saw what happened, they could have been transparent much earlier than they were.
A month after China
But
discovered
China,
the
just so
virus.
you understand, China is not a beneficiary here. China has lost thousands and thousands of people. China has gone through hell over this. They've gone through hell, and I've had conversations with President Xi. I just wish they could have told us earlier. They knew they had a problem earlier. I wish they could have said that.
Are you able to share, thank you for the numbers on the testing, by the way, are you able to share any other hard numbers on number of available tests, on number of ventilators in the federal stockpile?
Well, I'm going to leave that up to Dr. Fauci and everybody else, and I think the answer is we want to share them. I would imagine we want to share the numbers as Admiral, do you want to discuss that?
500 billion masks that you cited, they're due for delivery in 18
Not
months.
billion, no, not billion.
500 million masks, excuse me, thank you.
I said, wait a
The
minute.
half a billion masks, they're due for delivery according to HHS within 18 months. The last number on ventilators we had was 12 to 13,000. Can you give us an updated number?
Well, there's
on that?
never been numbers like this. You know, a ventilator is a machine. It's a very complex machine. And to think that we have to order hundreds of thousands, nobody's ever heard of a thing like this. You know, when we had in the stockpile, we had thousands in a stockpile, thousands ready to go. That's a lot. All of a sudden, you need hundreds of thousands. And you're not talking about, you know, the mask is whether it's plastic or whether it's material. That's one thing. But you're talking about a very sophisticated, heavily computerized machine and delicate. And you need hundreds of thousands of them. Nobody's ever heard of a thing like that. With that being said, General Motors, Ford, so many companies, I had 3 calls yesterday directly. Without having to institute like you will do this, these companies are making them right now. But to think of these numbers, it's pretty mind-boggling.
Do you have numbers to share, though, right now? Do you have numbers to share with us right now?
Well,
On stockpile?
Mike, go ahead, please.
Yeah, you bet. Well, we've spoken a lot about masks this morning, but the president's also given the task force a priority of assessing the availability and expanding the availability of ventilators. And on Monday, we will detail some very encouraging news for Americans. You speak about the number of 13,000. It is a little more than that we have in the national stockpile. But it's important to remember that that doesn't include the more than 100,000 ventilators that are in healthcare facilities and hospitals around America today. It doesn't include what will be produced, as the president said. We're seeing companies step forward. These manufacturers tell us that a ventilator actually isn't a very complicated piece of equipment, and many of them are literally surging forward to create more ventilators. But one of the more exciting developments in the last week, which we'll detail more on Monday, is that in the president's engagement with our healthcare community, we learned that ventilators that are currently used by anesthesiologists, that are used in outpatient clinics and in other procedures, can be converted to be used as ventilators for people struggling with the effects of the coronavirus. We've confirmed that a particular screen in that device can be changed readily. We're working with the FDA to approve that. But again, it's a great testament of the American people and our healthcare professionals that are stepping forward and bringing ideas forward that literally, as we'll document Monday, will increase the supply of ventilators by tens of thousands. But look, the president's made it clear. We want to make sure that all the incredible, courageous men and women who are serving in healthcare around America have the support they need, that our patients that are struggling with recovering from coronavirus have the equipment they need. And we'll have a lot of detail on Monday as we continue to assess.
8 days ago that we
what's
would have
available.
1.4 million tests on board by the end of this week, by today. Do we have that? Can you give us the number that we have?
Let me let Admiral Goss speak to that.
Thank you.
So I'm going to answer your question and then try to persuade you to stop asking about a specific number, okay? So from March 2nd to March 14th, we have put over 10 million laboratory tests into the U.S. commercial market, and we expect that by March 28th to be well over 27 million into the market. So that answers your question, and let me tell you why it's not the right question. Not every lab can run every test. Not every test is completely self-contained. So the more important question is not how many tests are in the market. We got them in the market, but is to make sure that every segment of the market has the kind of test that they can use.
Admiral, we're using your numbers, trying to find out for the public if the things you've promised are happening.
Yes, they are happening. They are. We promised 1 or 4 million. There's 10 million tests in the market
And
now.
are the masks that are in the strategic reserve being deployed, Mr. Vice President?
Yes, the masks in the strategic national
So
stockpile.
it's not 13,000 anymore, it would be a lower number. Would that be fair to say?
Masks are.
No, the ventilators. I'm sorry, the respirators. Thank you. We're trying to understand if the things we have been